Good evening and welcome to a Friday edition of Talking Sports with Evan. I'm Evan Witalis, and I appreciate you all tuning in here tonight on a Friday to hear what I have to say in the wide world of sport. Badgers volleyball moves on to the Elite Eight following a 3-1 win over Stanford. Now they face Texas on Sunday for berth to the Final Four. Big thank you to John Adias last week coming in and talking and previewing Badger volleyball. It was a great and fun episode, and you can find that interview on Spotify, or you can find it on Talking Sports with Evan on Facebook and YouTube, or you can find it on my X account as well. So, big thank you to John, and a big thank you to everybody that tuned into that. And the Badgers, as I said, they move on after a 3-1 win over Stanford, and now they face Texas to get to the Final Four. The Milwaukee Bucks beat the Boston Celtics last night in a game without Giannis, and Giannis out still injured. And the drama of Giannis is still running high as we are at the speculation machine on if he wants out of Milwaukee or if he wants to stay in Milwaukee. Not going to get too much into that tonight, as my main focus here tonight is talking Packers and Broncos matchup of two of the best teams in the NFL going head to head Sunday at 3:25 Central Time in Denver. I still prefer to call it Mile High Stadium personally. I don't care what the actual name is at this point. It's Mile High Stadium, and the Packers have not won there, I believe, since 2007. So can the Packers go into Mile High Stadium and pull off a W? The Packers surprisingly 2.5-point favorites in this one. So that's going to be the main focus of the show. Going to talk some Packers Bears in a minute before I do talk Packers and Broncos. But the other big sports story going around, or sports entertainment story going around, is tomorrow, Saturday night main event, the final match of hustle, loyalty, respect, never give up, John Cena. Tomorrow is his final official match against Gunther, and be interesting to see how they play it out. Do they have Gunther beat John Cena in John Cena's final match, which you typically see when wrestlers are going out, but you do also occasionally see wrestlers win their final match too. But typically you're supposed to, when you're in your final match, especially against somebody who's an up-and-comer or a younger guy or whatever, you're supposed to kind of, pass the torch to them. And Gunther doesn't necessarily need the torch passing, as he has been WWE champion. He's the longest reigning Intercontinental champion in WWE history, and he is retired well over the top to old Bill Goldberg not too long ago. So we'll see if they have Gunther continue the finish guys' careers off card with this one, or does John Cena get the upper hand? So you can find Talking Sports with Evan on Facebook and YouTube. Just look up Talking Sports with Evan. You can also find me on X at Evan with Sports. You can also find Talking Sports with Evan on Spotify as well. Just search for Talking Sports with Evan. And if you're interested in joining the show and talking some sports with me, feel free to reach out to me on any of these platforms as well. Well, before we talk Packers and Broncos, we do got to talk some Packers and Bears. And the Packers come out with a 28-21 victory over the Chicago Bears as Keyshawn Nixon intercepts a Caleb Williams pass into the end zone that would have made it a 1-point game, and then it would be decision time if you were the Bears. Were you going to kick the extra point and likely send it to overtime with how much time was left, or were you going to go for two and try to go for the win at the end there as well? I guess we'll never know. I suspect they were going to go for two in that situation, but we never know because Keyshawn Nixon made a very good play, seeing that Evan Williams didn't cover the correct guy. He didn't drop into the end zone to cover the tight end, so Keyshawn Nixon broke off his coverage and ended up making a great play. Now, if Caleb Williams sees the tight end sooner, likely it's a touchdown, but that's where Caleb Williams has to do some growing up as well. But the big things that stood out to me about the game was the continued great play of quarterback Jordan Love. This is his third or fourth straight game where, if you are a believer in Pro Football Focus, he has scored in the 90s elite category, third or fourth week in a row. And Jordan Love has been playing great as of late. He's had a very good season. Now he's playing great to elite, and it is great to see that from Jordan Love. I talked about consistency on my preview show, and that's the one thing that would hold Green Bay back, and we're starting to see that consistency. And he has been great with his deep ball the last 2 weeks against the Bears and the Lions. And to be, it's just, like I said, it's been a fun experience. And the Packers' offensive line continues to play better. Especially the three road graders in the middle, and Sean Ryan, Aaron Banks, and Anthony Belton. Now, the pass protection, not Belton's strong suit, but the running game has gotten significantly better with those three in the middle. And you got Kennard in that extra tackle package, the U71, as it used to be called. Now it's the U70, as he comes in for short yardage situation. Christian Watson continues to shine. He needs more targets. He clearly does. He needs to get at least 10 targets per game. And I know with the Packers offense, it's about finding the open receiver. You don't force feed receivers. You just find the open guy and go there. But Christian Watson has shown time and time again that he needs to be a focal point of this Packer offense. He had 2 touchdowns against the Lions, including a 50-something yard deep ball that was beautifully thrown by Jordan Love. And he had 2 touchdowns against the Bears, one of which was a quick slant where he just completely burned his man and then ran away from the rest of the Bears defense for 7. He needs to get more touches. Josh Jacobs made an incredible run on the Packers' final scoring drive on 3rd and 1. They run a toss play, which I hate toss plays on 3rd and 1. But I get, they're going to expect to run up the middle. Fine. But when you do the pitch play or the toss play, you might want to block somebody. And the Packers didn't really block too many people for Josh Jacobs. And Josh Jacobs still took it for a big gain and a first down, ended up scoring on a short touchdown run to bring the deficit to 28-21. Defensively, tip your hat to Keyshawn Nixon. Keyshawn Nixon got 2 boneheaded penalties. I know one should have been on the offense first and at least should have been offsetting, but Nixon put himself in that situation and led to a penalty. And tip your hat to him. He definitely redeemed himself. He had a couple pass breakups. He had a screen that he just completely blew up by basically before the ball got there. And then the interception to seal the game. Edgerrin Cooper had another great game going sideline to sideline. Nice having Quay Walker back on the field with Cooper and Quay Walker on the field. The Packers linebacking core is one of the fastest in the NFL. Now, not everything was sunshine and rainbows. There are still some things to be concerned about. And the biggest thing is the Packers' ability to stop the run and get off the field on 3rd down. The Broncos can pound the ball. They're going to want to play ground control and limit Packers' offensive possessions, and let's just try to run the ball against Green Bay. And that's what teams are going to do moving forward until the Packers can show that they can consistently stop the run. And Ngambare made a huge play on 3rd and 1 when he had to force that 4th and 1, which led to that interception. But overall, great win by Green Bay. They dominated the first half, held on to win in the second half, and now they're currently 9-3-1 in first place in the NFC North, where they belong, currently the 2 seed overall in the NFC. But now they have to travel to Denver, a place they have not won since 2007, going up against the best defense in the NFL, a team that has 55 quarterback sacks on the season, a team that has given up just 17 sacks on the season, and a team that does enjoy running the football. The Packers are going to have their hands full. There's really no other way around it. They're going to have their hands full going up against this tough Denver team. But hey, they could win the game. They're 2.5-point favorites by Vegas. They can definitely win the game, and this is definitely a game that the Packers could win. but it's going to be the old adage in football. You got to protect the football, can't turn it over, and you got to be able to stop the run. There's a couple areas in this game that's really going to be interesting to watch. Denver has the best offensive line in terms of pass blocking, according to all the different metrics out there, Pro Football Focus, you name them. They have the best pass blocking offensive line in the NFL. Packers are led by Micah Parsons. Packers have Rashawn Gary, who's been in a huge slump now for the past several weeks. Ngambare has been outstanding, getting pressure on the quarterback lately. The Packers like to disguise blitzes, and they've been sending safeties on blitzes more frequently lately. And Denver's given up 17 sacks all season long, and we're at December 12th, the recording of this show. If the Packers can get pressure on Bo Nix, they can create turnovers on Bo Nix. We saw a few weeks back against the Raiders on Thursday Night Football, where the Raiders were able to get pressure on Bo Nix, and Bo Nix ended up throwing about 2 or 3 interceptions. And then last week we saw Bo Nix against the Raiders, and he had a really high completion percentage. 300 yards passing was incredible, and that's because the offensive line protected Bo Nix enough to allow him to find the open receiver. Packers are the best offense in the NFL on third down. The Broncos are the best defense in the NFL in getting off the field on third down. That's going to be another big moment in this game on who's going to bend first. Denver, they get after the quarterback too. 55 quarterback sacks on the year. Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker are going to have their hands full with the defensive ends of the Broncos. But the thing is, the Broncos are a little small up front. Their front seven's not the biggest. So if you can get that run game going with your new Spieth, that's the best way to slow down a pass rush, is run on them and run on them really well and get positive yards per touch. The Broncos, though, they have a great wide receiver in Sutton. So Keyshawn Nixon's going to have his hands full with Sutton, a 7-year pro. They have a pretty strong running game, and it's kind of a Goliath versus Goliath type game. The Broncos, if they win, they clinch a playoff berth. They clinch a playoff berth, and they do an inch move a couple steps closer to a division title. If the Packers win, they improve to 10-3-1. They keep first place in the division, with the Bears playing the Cleveland Browns, which is likely going to be a Chicago Bear win. So you definitely need this win to stay ahead of Chicago. The only thing that could catch Chicago if they get caught in a trap game with the Browns, knowing that they have the Green Bay Packers a week from Saturday. And the Packers, they don't have time for a trap game. Denver's a damn good football team, a well-coached football team. Vance Joseph has done a great job with that defense. And Sean Payton, very good offensive mind, and he's got this Bronco team cooking right now. So what are your thoughts on Packers and Broncos? Who's going to win? What are your keys to victory? I think my keys to victory, I already talked about, is protecting Jordan Love, not turning the ball over, and moving the chains on third down, and also getting off the field on third down against the Broncos. Because if you can't get off the field on third down, the Broncos are just going to have those long, time-consuming 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 17-play drives that doesn't get you a lot of time to have the football in your hands. And I'm pretty positive that the Broncos' main focus is going to be keeping that football out of Jordan Love's hands. And then the other big matchup is Christian Watson and Patrick Surtain, the defending NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Christian Watson is cooking right now. Who's going to win that matchup? The Broncos play a lot of man coverage. They prefer to play man coverage, get pressure on the quarterback, play man coverage across the board, and hope for the best. But the Packers are one of the best teams in the NFL this year, beating man coverage. So a lot of storylines in this game for the Green Bay Packers and the Denver Broncos at 3:25 at Mile High Stadium on Sunday. And it'll be interesting to see what we see in this game. So my prediction, Packers win. think the Packers squeak out a victory. They're playing hot right now, and they've shown that they can win the ugly games. They've shown that they can win a blowout game. They've seen that they can be in control of good teams. Look at Detroit. Minnesota was an ugly win. They got that. Now, Cleveland was Cleveland, unfortunately. I know the Packers still have that blemish on their roster, but each and every week that Carolina Panther game isn't looking quite as bad. But the Packers with 3 losses, theoretically, probably should have 3 additional wins with the way those games went. Really, they should have 3 additional wins. The Eagles game, 10-7 loss. They had chances in that game, but too many drops. The Panthers, too many drops, had chances in that game, and some poor decisions by the Packers, Jordan Love, and play calling by LaFleur. They lost, and the same thing happened in Cleveland. Poor decision making from Love, bad play calling from Matt LaFleur, and the Packers couldn't get the win. But I'm excited for Sunday. I'm excited for another Packer victory. And before we move on and call it a show, it's going to be a short Friday edition of Talking Sports with Evan, looking at the current NFL standings, the AFC East. You got the Patriots on top of 11-2, and if they win this week, they clinch the division, happen to be playing the Buffalo Bills. The Miami Dolphins at 5-7, and the Jets at 3-9. The only real surprises there is the Patriots could clinch the division this week. The AFC North, you got a 2-way tie for first place with Baltimore and Pittsburgh, both sitting at 6-6. You have the Bengals at 4-8, and the Browns at 3-9. The AFC South, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars at 8-4, the Colts at 8-4, the Texans at 7-5, and the Titans at 1-11. But hey, hold your horses with the Colts. Daniel Jones is now out for the rest of the season following rupturing his Achilles tendon, and now the Colts are leaning on Riley Leonard and wait for it. Phillip Rivers. They signed Phillip Rivers to their practice squad, and there's a chance that he may end up playing against the Seattle Seahawks, and I guess Riley Leonard's a little banged up. Now, if Phillip Rivers doesn't get activated to the active roster, never leaves the practice squad, his Hall of Fame clock does not reset. He was a semifinalist for the Hall of Fame this year. But if Phillip Rivers gets added to the active roster, he now has to wait another 5 years. But that's just crazy to me. 44 years old, Phillip Rivers getting off his couch, getting ready to take on the Seattle Seahawks potentially this week. Cam Newton not really happy about that, and I don't blame him. He's 36. He thinks he can still play. But the reason why the Colts go with the 44-year-old Phillip Rivers over Cam Newton is Phillip Rivers has been the starting quarterback for the Colts before. He knows the offense really well, and you're hoping that his familiarity with the offense and his leadership and mentorship to Riley Leonard can be more positive than good. And Cam Newton, with all due respect to him, he's kind of limited on what you can do with him at this point in his career, especially. I know you're limited on what you can do with Phillip Rivers, big time. But like I said, Phillip Rivers knows the offense inside and out. So you're not going to need to spend a lot of time getting him ready to run the offense, where Cam Newton's going to need a crash course in Colts football 101. AFC West, the mighty have fallen. The Kansas City Chiefs, for the first time since I don't even know when, the first Trump administration, maybe even the late Obama administration, will not be winning the AFC West. They fell on Sunday night to fall to 6-6, and their playoff hopes are hanging by a thread as they sit at 6-6. The Broncos at 10-2. The Chargers at 8-4. Mentioned the Chiefs and the Raiders sit at 2-10 to close out the division. And if the Broncos beat the Packers, they win the division. If they don't, then you have the Chargers now a game behind the Broncos. Jumping over to the NFC East, Cowboys are up to second place at 6-5-1, as the Philadelphia Eagles have now lost 2 in a row, and the Eagles are looking like they're in a bit of a free fall. It's looking like 2 years ago, all over again with the Eagles. The offense is stale. Looks like there's tension in the locker room, tension on the sidelines, tension on the field, and the Eagles are fading fast, and they're going to have to correct the ship very quickly if they don't want a repeat of 2 years ago. The Commanders hit at 3-9 in a lost year after making the NFC Championship game last year, and the Giants, surprising nobody, is at 2-11. The NFC South, you got Tampa Bay and the Panthers virtually tied atop the division. The Buccaneers lost last night to the Atlanta Falcons, and as I mentioned, they are now tied atop the division. And the Panthers are looking like a team that could. The Panthers are in first place by themselves in the division. And the Panthers are looking like a team that is potentially playoff bound as they start figuring things out. In the NFC West, you got you have a tie atop. The Rams and the Seahawks sit at 10-3. 49ers sit at 9-4. Then the Cardinals bring up the rear at 3-10. And it looks like Kyle Murray's career in Arizona is officially over, as they placed him on IR. Jacoby Brissett getting all of the first team reps, and he is now the starting quarterback for the rest of this season. And the NFC North, that's where I'm going to finish it off with. The Packers 9-3-1 sit atop. The Bears sit at 9-4. The Lions 8-5, just outside looking in barely, and the Vikings sit at 5-8. Chicago. Ben Johnson's going to have some decisions to make here. Caleb Williams looks to be a great athlete. He could make some throws that make you say wow in a good way, and he can make some throws that make you say wow in a bad way. And we saw both sides of Caleb Williams on Sunday. The decision that Ben Johnson needs to make, and I don't think it's being talked about enough, Ben Johnson has to decide, is running his offense the way he wants to run it more important than building your offense around Caleb Williams? Caleb Williams is in year 2. Year 3, they have to make the decision during year 3 if they're going to exercise, by the end of that season, going into year 4, they got to decide if they're going to exercise that 5th-year option or not and possibly sign him to a humongous extension. The biggest problem with Caleb Williams is the same issues he's had since college. He can hold the ball too long. He looks for the big plays down the field too much, doesn't check it down enough, and he takes too many sacks. I know the Packers pass rush didn't get to him too many times this past Sunday, but that's the big problem you have with Caleb Williams. He does his best when he's moving around. You're moving the pocket. He's running around. He's improvising. He's off schedule. That's when Caleb Williams is at his best. And Ben Johnson's offense likes to be on schedule, on time, playing from within the pocket. So Ben Johnson has a decision to make. Does Ben Johnson force feed his offense to Caleb Williams? Because in the first half, they tried forcing Caleb Williams to play within the pocket, on schedule, on time, and the pass rush was getting there too quickly. He was very indecisive, and the offense looked horrible. In the second half, you saw a lot more of Caleb Williams moving around, scrambling, getting outside the pocket, making throws on the run. And that's where Ben Johnson needs to decide. What does he want his focal point of the offense going to be? I think Caleb Williams can be a very good NFL quarterback within the right system. But the question is Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears that correct system? The Detroit Lions at 8-5 are hanging on by a thread, but the defensive injuries are going to catch up to them eventually. They have to, right? Last year, The injuries never caught up to them until the NFC divisional round against the Commanders. But at some point, all the injuries the Lions are having, especially in the secondary, has to catch up to them at some point, right? Right? Offensively, they look really scary with Gibbs. But again, that defense, the injuries have to catch up. In the Vikings, J.J. McCarthy had a decent game against the Commanders, but I still don't think he is the long-term answer. So that'll do it for tonight's show. Next week, talk about the Heisman Trophy winner, recap Packers and Broncos, talk Badger volleyball, hopefully continuing on in the tournament on Sunday, and many more things to discuss. This has been Talking Sports with Evan. Hope you all have a great and safe weekend. I'll get back to you next week.